Well, hello. I'd like to do something a little different tonight. I want to talk about three fountain pens. These are Centropen ladies pens, and yeah, I know, kind of sexist, but think about the time they were made. So we'll make some fun as different finishes, and we'll look at some nibs. So let's dive into it. All right, so I've arranged these three pens kind of in a recognizable symbol of luxury. First thing I want to do before I show you the pens in detail, this is another Centropen, kind of a similar manufacture. Let's grab one that's a little more similar. Okay, this will work. So, this other one is a little bit larger. Finials are basically the same. Now, they both have blind caps, which we'll explore in a minute. And this one, the bigger one, has an ink window, and the smaller one does not. And the smaller one has a much smaller nib. One thing these two share is this Isco nib. So I'm going to set aside the big brother because that's not important to this story, but I think it was worth looking at. So these are the ladies' pens. So let's just take a closer look at the finishes. So first of all, when we look at clips, I am seeing two different clip designs. I'm seeing a slightly different finial design. And this finial is different. I appreciate the beautiful, beautiful celluloid finishes on these. I was told one of these had a gray finish, one had a green, but yeah, they're both green. That's okay. So we'll take the caps off. We're just going to take a look inside. So, yeah, I'm showing you the feed first. Deal with it. So the feed side, I think I see... I'm not sure if I see the manufacturing from a time before they were really careful. Is it hand-cut feeds? I don't know. They're similar and yet different. So let's look at nibs, which is what inspired me to make this video in the first place. So we have an Isco nib, and a Bock nib. And the Isco nibs, the two Isco nibs, are just a tiny bit different from each other. And I've had very good luck with Bock nibs on other vintage pens. So I am just curious how these compare. Now, one other thing worth noting, let's see if I did it right. Yeah, I did. The two green caps are not compatible. This one does not screw onto this pen. So that was interesting. And of course, for all of them, there is a blind cap covering up the piston. So you can't tell how it fills. By the way, do we like this background? This is thanks to a viewer and fellow YouTuber who I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say her name, so I won't. But she is getting one of the green ones after I film this video. By way of thank you for this and several other things she has helped this channel with. So I'm going to put it in my regular review notebook. I hope I did my apostrophe correctly. I'm not a grammar genius or anything. But these are all Centropen ladies pens, so I'm trying to do the possessive form of a plural. And the ink in all three of them is Iroshizuku Yu Yake. And what I want to do is just compare the different nibs. So this isn't really a review. It's a nib comparison. So let's bring contender number one. This is the red. And it has an Isco nib. Come This nib definitely shows more signs of aging than the others, but it's a gold nib, so it shouldn't tarnish. So let's call it Red Isco. And I think you can see there that it definitely has some line variation. Here's no pressure. Here's putting on the heat. So as far as flex, yeah, it's got some. Oh, I should do the oblique test, even though it's not really an oblique nib. And a little bit of wetness and flow. Perhaps a nice little smear test. And for funsies, let's do a... Ew. Okay, so reverse is really bad. Now I'm going to do the green Isco next so we can compare the two Isco nibs, and we can compare the Isco to the Bock nib. So this one is green. Nice olive green. You uncap it. It has a less tarnished Isco nib. And they're all 14 karat nibs, even the Bock nib. So this is going to be my green. Okay, so one thing I'm noticing right away is more feedback with this one. It's not as smooth as the red one. But I'm also noticing that it does a much finer line with no pressure, because here's what no pressure looks like. Full pressure looks about the same. And then we'll do the oblique test. So obviously this puppy has some flex. Shows the shading on the sink very well, just like the other Isco nib. Wetness and flow, very good. But, since it's not as broad, very wet, I'd say equivalently wet. And let's see how the reverse writing goes. Okay, not quite as nasty because it actually wrote, but ew. Okay, and then the last one will be this other green pen. Oh, just thought of something. Oh, okay. So this green pen is the one with the Bock nib. And of course, if you follow this channel, you know I like me a vintage Bock nib. This is a German brand. Now, how do I feel about the modern ones? Modern Bock, some are good, some aren't. So this is the green. Okay. So it's already gouging the paper a bit. The tines may be slightly misaligned. Got that feeling. So if you ever need to align a nib, one thing you can do is use your fingernail to press on it slightly. But I'm going to look at it real quick under the loupe. I'll edit that wasted time out, but oh yeah, one tine is definitely misaligned from the other. Can I show you? I don't know if you can make that out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press down on the tine that's a little up. Okay, so definitely more feedback. So it's probably still not perfect. Yeah, feel the feedback that way. Can I... Pressure. Ooh, I think I helped it there. Alright, so definitely a flexy puppy. Wetness and flow, definitely still wet nib. By the way, a little stubby. And reverse. Okay, of the three, it does the best with reverse writing. So what do we get out of that? Well, my opinion, I think I like the Isco nib better. Here's what's going to happen. The person who's helped this channel out so much is going to be getting the green Isco. I'm going to keep the Bock one because it's something unique and different in my collection. I have an Isco nib for this model of pen, so I'm going to give away the one that's different. And I'll probably, over time, do a little work on that Bock nib, see if I can smooth it out or better align the tines or something. So, yeah, that was interesting. You know, and none of them really show, where to go here? None of them really show the paintbrush-like traits of this Isco nib. And I have another vintage Isco nib that's also really awesome. But they're still pretty good nibs. So, yeah, I'm just glad I tried this little experiment. I think I learned something. Okay, I was almost done, then I thought, hey, gotta do the Pier Gustavsson test. So, it's time for the world-famous Pier Gustavsson test. So the red Isco does great. The green Isco does perhaps even better. And the green Bock with a cute little goat. It sang a little going that way. All right, so all three seem to do well with the Pier Gustavsson test. A little railroading there, but that could have been how I held the pen. Okay, so as you saw, I had two that were kind of that olive green finish. One was the red finish. The one that was the red finish you've seen on here before. It writes beautifully. The two with the green finish, I'm not sure if I've shown here before. I will tell you what occurred afterwards. One of those two green ones, and I don't remember which one, I purchased thinking it was gray because it was sold as a gray. And I was like, oh, I got to get one more color of that celluloid. And no, it was green. But what I discovered is I had one of the fountain pens has that, the Bock nib. The other one has that Isco nib. The Bock nib, very scratchy. The Isco nib, very, wrote very well during the video. But then I was writing a letter with it afterwards, and oh my God, it started railroading after just a short while. So that wasn't good, and I have not cracked that nut. I have cracked the nut of the feedback on the Bock nib. It needed some nib straightening. Now, if you've ever tried to straighten a nib, pretend my fingers are the tines of the nib. Sometimes they're not. Well, I don't have any two fingers of the same length. Sometimes they're not quite lined up. So this one, I guess, was more like this. And anyway, so what you do is you use your fingernail and you push down on this tine, and then it springs back, and you push down some more and it springs back. Then you push up on this one a bit and it springs back, and eventually you get it to the point where the tines are aligned. And I got it to the point that it was a pretty sweet writer and I was enjoying it. So that's the pen I'm sending. Did I mention that during the writing, that I'm sending one of these pens to somebody? I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say who, so I'm not going to mention that. But somebody who's helped the channel, she donated a few things that you've seen in a few recent videos. So, I had the extra pen, so I thought, why not? So hopefully she enjoys it. A little bit of vintage pen from 1960s or 50s, somewhere in that area. Czechoslovakia, which no longer exists. But very nice pen. The other one, the one with the Isco nib, I'm going to work with it a little bit longer, and I'll eventually crack that nut too. I'll make it work. There are a lot of things you can do with a nib like that. I just need the time to do them. So I'm actually looking forward to that. And yeah, one of the risks you always run with vintage is you're going to get something that's sort of, and you have to do some work on it. And if you want to dive into vintage, that is always something you need to be ready for. Unless you find a good retailer who you know they're always going to sell you pens that work perfectly. But even the retailers where you know the pens are always going to work perfectly, sometimes you get a lemon. So I think it's good if you're in the vintage world to know a little bit about pens. Now, I've never gotten into nib smoothing. That would be something for a future. Well, I've got a couple pens that need some nib smoothing because the tines are aligned. They just, so something for the future. But anyway, I want to thank you for watching. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.